Hello and welcome to the Winning Agenda's coverage of the International Twilight Struggle League. My name's Jesse Marshall and I'm here with a very exciting stream today. It's the finals, the playoffs of the International Twilight Struggle League, and I'm playing against Amron. So very excited to be here and hoping for a good hand as the USSR. Because as we all know, it's important to get that Soviet steamroller going early, otherwise things can get a little bit prickly in the mid-war if you're trying to get ahead as the Soviets. So this hand, there are a few good things about it. We'll just do a regulation setup. We'll take a moment to think about this, but I don't think there's any reason. So we've got NASA to defray any Middle East issues. We're not going to try any Comic-Con trap business. Firstly, because we don't have defectors. Secondly, because we don't have Marshall Plan. So if we were to try something a little bit off the wall, now's probably not the time. Some of the good things about this hand, having Europe scoring allows us to dump it early and stop the US from scoring for domination in Europe, but it also gives us an opportunity on turn one also, if we do get a chance to coup Italy and if it is successful, to get a positive score happening in Europe, which is something that can be quite important if you're going to set up an early Soviet victory. NASA also allows us to defray Middle East scoring and 4 free victory points in the headline phase for the US. We haven't got any Asia access cards is sort of the one issue. And we've got a 4-4-2 setup from the USA, meaning that it is a little harder for us to successfully coup Italy. We need to roll a 5 on either of our 4 ops cards to get a successful coup off. I'm usually pretty happy to throw NASA up on turn 1, because if it gets defectors, that means they're not headlining Middle East scoring anyway. So it's really not a problem. And I'd rather try and hold Red Scare, I think, for turn 2 once we know a little more about what's happening, or potentially use it this turn for ops if we need to, because we have a pretty ops light hand. The other advantage about headlining NASA is it allows us to get a 1 ops card out of our hand. We could headline Europe scoring as well, since I think it is going to be a little difficult for us to dominate Europe. But if they give us an early Romanian abdication, for example, then we could jam into West Germany and see if we can force some ops problems for them and take France. So our defectors worked out. 4 victory points, that's a pretty important start. So that stops them from gaining the 4 victory points, but it also gives us an opportunity to get into Northwest Asia by coupping Pakistan here. So since we've got both Test Ban and Red Scare, we'll just hold onto the Red Scare for now and use the Test Ban to try and get into Iran. So, I mean, for those of you who've watched a number of streams before, you'd be aware that most people will say that's as good a result as the Soviets. What's probably a better result than getting 1 op in there. Just kicking the US out means that it's hard for them to actually develop a presence. So what we might do here, I'm loath to use duck and cover for ops after we've just gone to all that effort to deny our opponent presence in the Middle East. But by the same token, denying them another coup here is pretty cool. The other option is that we could just space duck and cover this turn and use Red Scare and hold US-Japan Pact. Which I think wouldn't be too bad, but we would want to probably get rid of Europe scoring as soon as possible, because it's pretty dangerous having that hanging around in our hand. Yeah, so the other option is like to coup Panama with Comic-Con or something, or even just to coup Panama with Truman Doctrine. I think I might just do that. We're not really in any supreme rush. Like, we've now got the advantage in terms of being able to spread into these crucial countries. So I think just coupping here, reducing DEFCON, maybe if we're lucky, kicking them out of Panama, which we were lucky, is a better place to start. And we've now got a reasonable amount of ops in our hand. We've got a must space and a must play here. So we've got a kind of a couple of action rounds now tied up, as well as a card that we'd prefer not to play, because they're now a little thin on the ground. But we can presume now that we've got such an advantage in terms of access that our opponent's going to want to rush into Malaysia rather than be playing into France straight away. Yep. Okay, so they're trying to solidify their position across various... Oh, not coup, that's not what I wanted. I'm going to place influence. Various places across the map. So now's a good opportunity, I think, for us to move into some more aggressive positions and keep them on the back foot. So we'll move in there. We'll move in here to Iran rather than Afghanistan because I think it gives us more opportunities later in the game, and there's going to be not opportunities for them to coup really in the early war is the key thing. We can try and lock them out in Iraq, but I don't think since Middle East's been scored, they're going to be putting any extra influence into the Middle East, and I don't think we really should either. So the other thing that we could do instead of going into Iran would be to go into South Korea and then one into West Germany. But I do kind of want to keep attention away from Europe more than anything at this point, I think, and then just hope that we can dump this in the next action round. The advantage to playing into Afghanistan, actually, though, is that we set up Asia domination. So perhaps we want to keep that threat alive here. And then we can take South Korea. Yeah, I think that's probably better than playing into Iran. It just really necessitates our opponent playing into Thailand immediately and using as many ops as possible to do it. Yeah, it's kind of hard, like, since we don't know where Asia scoring is, to know how much to value this US-Japan Pact event. If we knew that Asia was going to be scored this turn, obviously we would absolutely not play this. But if Asia doesn't get scored till turn 3, then the ops from this allowing us to try and set up a more favourable score in Europe could be a better use of our time. Okay, but our opponent had a 4, so that's good for them, and pushes us this action round to be doing something a little more. So we're not going to give them a US-Japan Pact now that they've played an extra influence into South Korea, because we'll keep that Korean War threat up. Since Defectors hasn't come out this turn, we're not going to headline Red Scare next turn anyway. So let's just, I think, play into Iran. And then also play into Pakistan, possibly. Just to keep the Asia domination threat up. Yeah, I think that's the best use of ops. Because now, whatever our opponent does, they're kind of reacting. If they use ops to take Japan, that's brilliant because it opens up US-Japan Pact for us. If they use ops to take South Korea, it's a risk. And there's not really another avenue to challenge us in Asia at this point. And Indo-Pakistani wars are a problem, as it always is when you move into Pakistan on turn 1, but that's not too bad. Okay. They get themselves presence in the Middle East, so we'll just go ahead and dump Europe now, just to make sure we don't get randomly blown out by them going to France. And then our last action round, we can space, duck, and cover, or we can hold on to it for next turn, because we may want to, play into South Korea or something, or play into Libya and Egypt, rather than coupping, since there are no attractive coup targets on the map. We've only got 3 stability countries to coup. So, a few choices here for our opponent. Space Racing Korean War, fair enough. And then I think we will space, duck, and cover. Even though we don't have an attractive coup option, I really don't like giving away the 3 victory points. The other option, of course, is to play US-Japan pact to take South Korea, give them Japan, and still be one ahead on Asia, like that may actually be good, because then we pretty much solidify Asia as being 3-2 until they come across to India. We're still not dominating because of country count, but Vietnam Revolts is out there somewhere. So yeah, maybe locking down South Korea is the way to go here. Well, going early, otherwise things can get a little bit prickly in the mid-war if you're trying to get ahead as the Soviets. So this hand, there are a few. So yeah, we'll go in on that. Sorry about that random chatter that we got there. I had my stream running in the background and it started at the 10-minute delay. So you probably heard my voice double up there for a moment, but we've sorted that out. So yeah, I think we'll go with this option, and as we saw there, it forces our opponent to play for India, which is kind of cool. They may not have Indo-Pakistani War, which means that we can, if they do, then they're more likely to want to just play into India. But if they don't, then they're less likely to do that, because it's quite high risk for us to be able to flip that back. We don't have Indo-Pakistani War, but we do thankfully have de-Stalinisation. We've also got blockade, socialist governments, and Suez Crisis, which is a fair amount of opportunities for us to attack Europe. It would have kind of been nice to have some of those last turn, but look, I don't think we can complain about 3-4 ops in our opening hand. And we've now got UN intervention and Marshall Plan, plus we get to dump containment. So all in all, not a bad early war for us at all. Don't think we're going to headline Suez Crisis. Like, whatever we headline, there's a fair chance it's going to run into blockade. So we're definitely not going to... Sorry, that was going into defectors. So we're definitely not going to headline D-Stal, not going to headline Suez, because even though it kicks them out of Israel and denies access to Egypt and Libya, I don't think that's enough. So Arab-Israeli war is still out there. So still opportunities for us to get VPs as well as flip that. So I think we'll just headline socialist governments, and we could headline blockade. It's likely that they'll discard de Gaulle, but we might, if they don't have de Gaulle, I think we've pretty much hit all of the attractive Soviet 3-up events. So it'll really just be Warsaw Pact, which we're pretty happy for them to discard, I think, just to reduce their hand size. And I'd rather have the 3 ops from socialist governments. So I'm just going to headline blockade. Okay, so the only way that we could have scored Asia for domination there was to headline D-Stal. But them's the breaks. We certainly weren't going to run D-Stal into the risk of defectors. And our opponent probably knew that, which is why they went ahead and headlined the scoring card. So it did hit de Gaulle. But, as we said, without the China card, reducing the available both ops and options to our opponent is still important at any stage of the game. So with de Gaulle out of the way, they'll be a little less afraid of playing into France, but I still think they probably won't be super keen. So we can duck and cover into Egypt and Libya, which I don't think's bad. Like, it sets up a pretty favorable Middle East map for us. And doing it that early in the game, I think, is worth more than the VPs that we give up from this. And we'd be giving up both ops and time by not doing it. So although I am loath to do the duck and cover play, I think this is one instance where it's probably worthwhile, even though we're both giving up the duck and cover VPs as well as potentially the mill up VPs, depending on whether they have Arab-Israeli war. It does make AI war a more attractive space target for them this turn, and since we're probably not going to space this turn, given how good our hand is, that's maybe some more VPs that we're giving up there as well. But what we've got to do is turn that side of things, like if our opponent does, for instance, space Arab-Israeli war to deprive us of mill-ups, we've got to turn that tempo loss for them into an advantage, like a large advantage for us on the board. So we could do things like, we know that Marshall Plan is now not going to get played until turn 3, but potentially later in the mid-war. So because we're going to UN intervention it, so we can try and cause some more significant problems in Europe. We can also use the time and the ops to set up some really strong positions using D-Style. And we might actually use D-Style to do both. So for instance, taking operations from hopefully a Romanian abdication at some point this turn, but potentially Warsaw Pact or something else, and chucking those ops into South America and Africa. And if we can get a D-Style off and get one into Algeria, we can also threaten France with Suez Crisis to back us up. So we've got quite a few options for spreading and consolidating positions all over the board here. Which is not always a situation you find yourself in as the USSR, and it's one that we should do our best to try and exploit. In some ways, it would have been better for us to have, oh, well, there's the Romanian abdication, that's good. In some ways, it would have been better for us to have decolled than D-Style this turn to be able to attack into Thailand, but we can still do that anyway by moving into Malaysia or Vietnam. I think we might put one into Malaysia. The one into Vietnam's not bad. But one into Malaysia gives us access to Indonesia as well. We're going to get Vietnam from Vietnam revolts, and it still allows us to threaten to flip Thailand with the China card. So since we put DEFCON 2 already, and we just got the gift of Romanian abdication influence, I think we'll go ahead and make this tempo play now, threatening Thailand and France. We're going to prioritize South America, both the South American regions over this Southern Africa region, because we have the ops to consolidate our position there. So I think we may as well do it. And I think given how much tempo and time our opponent is putting into trying to stabilize Asia, we can afford to give them the China card here. But I would rather, honestly, I think, take France, even though we've taken away our Romanian abdication influence to de-Stalinize. It should be easy enough for us to take Turkey or Spain at some point in the future. So this is good. We've now got the opportunity to do two things this turn, or this action round. We're not going to get Asia, but we can get France. And they haven't got access to Turkey, and we've got Suez Crisis to kick them out of the UK and improve our position in Europe even further. We've also got to get one influence into Syria as well, we can't forget. So we'll play this and we'll put 3 into France, and I think we can accept a draw in Asia and just focus on really trying to dominate our opponent everywhere else on the map at this point. So we don't really need the one in Algeria for turn 3. We also don't really need to be, it's nice too, but we don't need to be fleshing out our position in South America just yet, but we will probably use some of our additional ops to do that. The fact that we're not handing over the China card means we don't need to beef up Pakistan. So I think we'll just go into Turkey here and start threatening. Now we've got access to all 3 Mediterranean countries by doing that. Which means that next action round we can, for instance, take Greece and put one into Spain, Portugal, if we wanted to. And we also know that Truman Doctrine is out of the deck because we managed to get that out of the way on turn 1. And I think we will play Containment, action round 6. I don't think we'll space it, even though that first space race spot is up for grabs. Alright, so they are playing very heavily for the Mediterranean countries and to defray Europe domination, and I think we're just going to fight them on it potentially. Socialist governments is actually probably better played to remove influence later, so I think we'll just play the Suez Crisis, leave it in the deck. Even though it's a good one to event, I don't think it's worth eventing right now. I think we'll just play into Greece. We can play 2 into Greece, 1 into Turkey. I'm trying to think the best way to then utilize this socialist government's on the flip side. It really depends what they're going to do, doesn't it? We also want to remember not to get too tunnel visioned and that we need 1 influence into Syria this turn. And potentially where else on the map? I don't think anywhere else on the map is quite as much of a priority. Using socialist governments to remove 2 from Italy, 1 from Greece, or 2 from Spain, Portugal, 1 from Greece, both are good. Because giving yourself the opportunity to jam into Italy is not too bad, and it does force a response. I think let's go all into Greece, because then if they play into Turkey to try and upset that balance, we can socialist governments them out. Unless, like, even if they play a 3-up, taking 2 out of there and 1 out of Spain is still a pretty decent play. And no, they're going to space. Okay. And 2 failures. I mean, that's obviously really good for us and really unfortunate for them. Yeah, so now I think rather than using the event, which is obviously really sweet and would be good, I think we will just do it this way. We do have to be careful of special relationships, so we'll put 1 more into France at some point in the turn. But for now, let's just do... actually, we can do that now. Let's do 1, 2, 3 and really try and solidify Europe here. So we've got Europe domination, Mid-East domination, and if we can... We're still going to struggle on country count, but we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plays 4. So even if we were to take Malaysia, and take India, it still becomes pretty challenging for us to control the map here. Okay, so they did have AI war and couldn't space it. If we roll a 6, that'd be amazing, but no, we're going. To be honest, I'm happy to just take the Milops at this point. And we'll place into... So we could take Iraq just for the extra... VP when Mid-East scoring occurs. We could start developing our position down in South America, which I think really is probably worth more VPs in the long run than fighting what I think is going to be a battle we're not going to win in Asia. So... let's do that. Let's go ahead and put 1, 2, 3 in South America. I mean, the other option was, while we've got ops, to take another country in Europe. Maybe that's better at this point. Nah. Like, if they've got 2 ops to put into Canada... Hard to say. When we don't have Romanian abdication anymore, we've got Warsaw Pact still in the deck. That's definitely going to be coming out next turn, which is going to assist us to try and take some of these Eastern European countries if we want to. So maybe the ops are. I think the ops probably are better spent here. Oh, not in Chile. Maybe we can put 2 and then 1 into Europe. That's probably the better way to do it. That 1 in Venezuela is a lie, because I keep misclicking. So let's go 1, 2, 3. Oh, we've ended up with a fake influence in Venezuela. That's okay. I might just exit and come back in so that we get rid of that fake influence, because that is going to irritate my OCD brain. There we go. So unless they play Indo-Pakistani War, which could be the last card they're holding, given their play pattern, I think there's a decent chance that it is. They've really been tempting us to play into India and shoring things up around it so that if they do manage to flip it, it's a massive tempo loss for us, as well as structuring their spacing so that they spaced decol and played Arab-Israeli war, which gave us the mil-ops that we were lacking. So, yeah, I mean, my read is that this is probably going to be Indo-Pakistani war, and they're probably tossing up between eventing it on Pakistan on a 6+, or using the 3 operations now because of containment to solidify something in Europe by, for instance, taking Canada. For us next turn, the priorities include trying to make sure that we stay in a domination position in Europe and having some more influence come out into, so as expected, Canada was priority number 1 for them, but we did get Vietnam, which now makes taking Malaysia a little more attractive. All right, so if we think that they're going to headline Europe scoring, we could headline Warsaw Pact. Fidel's going to be a nice one for us. We should not headline Warsaw Pact because we're going to play NATO, and we know that special relationship is out there this turn. We've got NORAD to go to space. We've got NATO for a coup action round 1. Do we just want to get Asia scoring out of the way since we know that they've got Indo-Pakistani war? I think so. We'll take the VP. We know that then even if they get lucky with the 6 on the war, which would then give them the opportunity to dominate us, that's just not going to turn into a score. So let's go with that. So captured Nazi scientist, fair enough. So they got defectors, but they're holding it for turn 4, presumably. And we'll use this opportunity to coup, I think, because it's just we've got too much influence sitting in places that are coupable for us to coup, for us to not coup, for us to give them the opportunity, and we've got no other way to degrade DEFCON. So do we coup Iraq or South Africa? I think we'll coup South Africa. Great. So that gives us so much more important access than a similar role in Iraq would have done. Because it's just, even though they could even out the Middle East with a lot of operations, it would cost them, 369 ops to even out Middle East scoring at this point, by which point we've had the tempo and space to, redominate Europe and spread all over Africa, South America, and Central America. We've also got a pretty decent hand this turn. East European unrest. It's going to be awkward. Like, we want to space NORAD and get that out of the game. That means it's not going to happen unless they salt negotiations and then play it. But yeah, East European unrest is going to be a wee bit awkward for us in terms of trying to dominate in Europe. Defectors coming out in an action round for the US is also pretty good for us in a lot of ways. Warsaw Pact would probably want to leave in the deck. I assume that they don't have Europe scoring, or they probably would have dumped it there. Asia's already been scored. There's not a lot of utility for them in taking India. And, this influence in Yugoslavia seems more like a precursor to trying to stop us from dominating any further. So I think we'll just... there's no rush, really, to go to space now. So let's put the De Gaulle influence. No, let's hold that just in case they want to try and make some kind of jammy play. Arab-Israeli war, we've already got our mil-ops, so let's just go ahead and start taking these African and South American positions. So this is kind of one of those games where it's not a steamroller in the sense that we haven't scored domination in any region, because although we've had domination positions in each region in our own action rounds, meaning that had we had the scoring cards, we could have scored them for domination. The scoring cards haven't come out in the order and the pattern that we needed for that to happen. There's still the opportunity for us to score Middle East scoring this turn, but judging by the fact that our opponent elected to last action round place into both Asia and Europe and not the Middle East, probably indicates that they don't have the Middle East scoring card this turn. Oh, okay. Just as I say that, they start the process of trying to, it seems, level out our domination in the Middle East. So I think we'll play De Gaulle here and just take Iraq, just to make sure we dominate. And it's also worth pointing out, I mean, those of you who've watched a lot of my videos will probably notice that it's unusual for me to end up with so much influence in the Middle East. Maybe that's because I tend to roll ones on my Iran coups, who knows? But I think it's also a combination of the fact that our NASA went undisturbed and our Iran coup was successful, which doesn't happen all that often, which allowed us to dominate kind of both sides of the Middle East here. So Europe is going to come out at some point, but I think we're going to have to eat this East European unrest. So I'm not really super keen on playing a whole lot of influence into Eastern Europe. I think I'd rather leave Warsaw Pact in the deck and just keep on continuing our march towards dominating South America, or rather controlling South America, which, if we can pull that off, is difficult to pull off given that all of the opportunities the US has to disturb it in the mid-war between OAS, Panama Canal returned, ABM, brush war. Okay, so there we go. I mean, that's why we were very fortunate for our opponent, but that's why we headlined Asia scoring, so that we didn't randomly get blown out by that happening in the middle of the turn. Because it was a threat, we knew our opponent had the card, they needed to roll a 6, and they did. We're going to event Fidel, and we're going to space NORAD here. I know that we're a little bit Voice of America vulnerable in South America, so I'm going to use these East European unrest influence in AR6 to add some more influence into South America. But and we're also going to try and do the same into Southern Africa before too long, but we can't do all of that this turn. If they get Voice of America turn 4, they get a turn 4. You know, we can't guard against absolutely everything, but we've got more ways to get back in here in the mid-war than we do to get back in here. So we'll probably actually headline Fidel, I think, and just trigger this for now. So we'll put one back into East Germany just to stop the random jamming. We'll put one into Venezuela and another one into Argentina, I think. It makes us a lot more resilient to realigns in this whole region, and although they can take us out of there, and there, for example, with Voice of America, it still just means that the card is less impactful than being able to wipe us out of the entire continent, for example. All right. So decal's obviously a really good one, especially if they either have Voice of America or Colonial Rearguards. Panama Canal returned and OAS founded are going to be difficult for us to manage, but not impossible. Muslim Revolution will probably end up eventing since Middle East remains unscored. Yeah, so I think we know that there's no defectors, so headlining decal could be good. Asia hasn't been scored. Asia has been scored, but Southeast Asia hasn't. So going one into Thailand and then flipping it is also not necessarily bad. Yeah, so I think I'll probably decal here and then just Fidel later in the turn. let's do that. Okay. Interesting. If they do, this is actually quite good for us, because if they do coup, even if they coup an African country and flip it, they degrade DEFCON, which means we can take Thailand in action round 1, which is very good for us. If they play Panama Canal for the event, we put the 3 into Venezuela last turn, so we still control it. So they are coups, which is good because it gets actually a card we wanted out of our hand, and we don't have to event that this turn. We don't have to manage it. So this is kind of nice. Where do we go here? I think we'll go 1, 2, keeping in mind the aforementioned Voice of America issue. If they do want to wipe us out of Southern Africa, even if we put 1 into Zaire, 1 into South Africa, they'd still be able to. So I'm going to put 1 into Zaire, and I'm going to use the last one to try and flip another one of these countries, and it's going to be Laos over Indonesia because it's more important for brush war purposes. And then I think even though we have, a somewhat challenging hand to manage otherwise, the fact that we've already got 2 out of the 3 Mediterranean countries and they've taken Canada, and they control the UK, and they've got the other Mediterranean country, Marshall Plan's probably like as useless as it ever will be. So let's just take a look at what the board looks like if we do this. It puts us ahead in Asia in terms of battlegrounds. It puts us even in Asia in terms of battlegrounds, and means we're not getting dominated anymore, which I think is important in terms of if we can grind out some advantage in the mid-war here, stopping them from having a path to comeback later in the game. So I think flipping Thailand is important, and they're going to have to, sort out these 2 countries straight away. We've got a must space in duck and cover, but the rest of our hand I think we can handle. So the other option, other than flipping Thailand, would be to take Zaire and take Laos and Malaysia. But I'm not convinced that that's the best use of ops, and we may not even draw brush war anyway to make that happen. So yes, we're giving up the China card. Yes, CIA is still out there, but we haven't got CIA in hand. And I think we're ahead enough in the mid-war that we could AR1 CIA if we needed to. Ahead enough in the mid-war regions, that is. We haven't got any meal ops this turn, which is a bit annoying, but hopefully these positions that we have in some of these mid-war regions are going to turn into victory points at some point. So we'll see what our opponent does. I mean, I think we've at least created a tempo challenge for them. Like, they've got 2 influence here, so they'll go into, Laos and Zaire. Fair enough. So now we can use our tempo to trigger this and get it out of the way. They can overprotect and overprotect and overprotect even more. And it's worth keeping in mind that if we've had an incredibly ops-rich start, we've been incredibly lucky compared to our opponent in terms of the number of ops that we've had in each of our hands. Most of our 3s, they've been countering with 2s. It's a pretty hard way to fight the game out as the US, but they've kept, a relatively even position. We need to really get our foot on the throat now, because that is going to turn around at some point, and I don't think we can be so greedy as to use, multiple ops to flip Laos, for example. But we will take Malaysia. Will we? Is that the best use of ops at this point? I mean, it gives us slightly more immunity to brush war, but I think we'd rather be turning into some VPs at this point, really, to be honest. Let's solidify Angola, and then we'll take South Africa and Botswana, I think, over the rest of the turn. Yeah, 4+ and brush war feels pretty bad when we've invested the China card into it, but I think we want to get this pressure on. Do we want to hold OAS founded over to the next turn is the big question with this hand, I think. We also want our opponent to go ahead of us on the space race this turn so that we can one small step them. So we'll hold that in the hope that they do. And we'll also hold back on duck and covering until later in the turn. Because if they do space and we can go one small step and then space to get to man in Earth orbit on turn 4, that'll be nice. Because seeing their headlines throughout the rest of the mid-war will be useful. Although, you know, as the Soviets, you don't want to get too far ahead on the space race track before their late war. Otherwise, you do risk some problematic shenanigans with DEF CON. Cool. So getting Comic-Con is nice. And it gives us the opportunity to get some domination happening, although keeping in mind that Independent Reds has not occurred. Whatever happened with Independent Reds in the early war? Did they play? Yeah, they played it on turn 3. Okay, so it's not coming out again for a while. So yeah, I think we're going to Bulgaria. So now it's a bit less attractive for us to event Muslim Revolution as opposed to using the 4-ops in Europe. We don't want to do Ask Not this early in the turn either, so we're kind of got a bit of an awkward position here. We probably want to try and hold OAS founded. Yeah, maybe we don't want to be so greedy on the... Maybe we'll go the space race and then try and see if we can space Ask Not. So unless they counter here with space race, we can still get to the 2 VPs from man in space without getting so far as man in Earth orbit. Because although it's nice to be there, it's also really bad not to be able to space Grain Sales if we draw it again on turn 7, or Voice of America if we draw it shortly. Okay, so that's good, and it gives us the flexibility to space Ask Not now. Ask Not now. At any point during the remainder of the turn. So yes, I think let's... maybe we trigger OAS founded... and I think I'd rather just hold it over for a turn in the hope that we or they draw South America scoring next turn. I think it's just these VPs having no in South America and just having those 10 VPs sitting there is pretty important. Let's get rid of this one small step, and we can either go South Africa or Botswana. I think since we're ahead on Millops, we will just go into Botswana. Yeah. The problem with Botswana is that if they coup, it does give realignment possibility. Like anytime that you're adding influence to that region, because it's such a realignment rich region, you're potentially creating problem for yourself down the track. But it goes the other way as well. Like it means that if they take Angola off us, we end up solidifying South Africa this turn, we then have more opportunities to, for instance, flip Zaire back the other way and threaten a really heavy realign on Angola. So as long as we can stay ahead on tempo, it gives us somewhat of a more positive outcome. So they've got no scoring cards, which is an important piece of information for us to have because it makes me more inclined to just play the Ask Not. With that being said, there are a few cards we don't want them to throw away, but it would be kind of nice to get that out of the deck, I think. We'll wait one more AR. So the question is, do we Muslim Revolution to get them out of Saudi Arabia and Jordan? Probably not. Well, we could take 2 countries in Europe instead, and that seems better. Yeah, let's do that. And then we're going to event Fidel, and then we can elect either to event Ask Not in our last action round or space it if we want to try and do that. But again, I'm not desperate to move ahead in the space race at this point. Okay, well, we got them to use Red Scare in that fashion. That's not too bad an outcome for us, I don't think. So I'm going to play this event, and then I think I am going to use Ask Not for ops, either into Costa Rica, now that Panama Canal Returned is out of the way, and that's a relatively safe non-battleground for us to take. Okay, cool. Well, I mean, that's kind of good. Like, they still get to retake it, but it's a flat neutral action round for them where they didn't achieve anything. So again, I mean, that's good. It's also really risky for them to accept an Ask Not swap in action round 7, because they could pick up a scoring card. If they swap 2 cards out, they could pick up 2 scoring cards, which is not the best. Let's trigger that and see what happens. So we are in danger of, although we've held Middle East domination for a really long time, not being able to score it for anything positive, which is kind of annoying. That the scoring card, came out on turn 1 in the headline phase and hasn't come out since. Alright, well, they did have OPEC and PAZ. Well, OPEC's probably the one card that we didn't want them to have there, so that's a bit annoying, because that's 5 VPs that we just lost. So we better try and make this count, I think. The best way to probably do that is to threaten 5 VPs back the other way. We're not doing Romania because we don't want to open up any kind of opportunity for independent Reds to turn into a victory point. And we're not doing South Africa because it's just not as important. Like, that's flipping a region, although going to Costa Rica would also flip a region to domination in our favor, and probably be harder for them to counter. I think I'm happy to do Europe at this point, since we're already getting a couple of VPs out of Central America, plus the domination bonus in Central America is not as strong. It's only 2 as opposed to 3 in Europe. Okay. So again, I mean, we're getting them to be spending significant amounts of operations, like 3 ops cards, just to defend and to take non-battleground countries, so I don't mind that too much. Alright, what's the headline here? So John Paul and Usuri are problems for us. Arms race, we're going to probably try and turn into some VPs. Voice of America still hasn't come out, but we're Voice of America proof in most regions on the board now, Nigeria accepted. And if they were to take us out of Iran and Afghanistan, that would be somewhat awkward, so we may want to overprotect Iran at some point. But what could we achieve with a quagmire here? There's not really a lot of opportunities for us to do any kind of jammy hostile takeovers. Maybe Pakistan, but they have the China card. Maybe Cultural Revolution is just the way to go. Yeah, let's do that. We'll just take back the China card. Although that leaves us a little more ops poor, I think it's okay. We can coup. We'll probably coup with a 2-op. Okay, unfortunate. Hopefully this is not successful in Thailand. Although they do have a few other opportunities elsewhere on the board that they may want to target. I would still think Thailand would be the most important. Yeah, that was really, really bad losing that OPEC last turn. That was like the best Soviet event that there could have been for us to lose there. But that was very fortunate, holding on to Venezuela. That kind of indicates to me that they've probably got South America scoring, so we'll be very careful not to play that OAS founded. But having the China card does add some good flexibility back into our hand. So let's use Willy Brandt to coup Zaire. Try and get Africa control as well. Bad roll. but at least we can. We can't use arms race either, unfortunately. I forgot about the 3 VPs they got from Brush War. That's unfortunate. But we can use arms race to flip Zaire potentially, depending on what their counterplay is like here. Okay. Well, that's okay for us, because now it's only 3-ops to respond to that, really. I mean, it means that they can flip Nigeria with a 3-op card, but yeah, I'm not too fussed about that. Since we have the opportunity to take South Africa or flip Nigeria back ourselves with our own 3-op card. We may, depending on whether they play the South America scoring card this turn, we may eat OAS Founded. If they do, we'll eat it after that. And then try and hold Quagmire, I think, for the headline phase next turn. But we'll see how we go here. So this is one of those turns where we are a little weaker on operations compared to them. But, you know, we get to keep Lone Gunman in the deck. It's unfortunate they haven't drawn it and had it sitting there like a festering sore, as sometimes happens when you're the US player. Alright, well, both of the power cards that they've played this turn have not achieved probably what they would like them to in terms of South America, so we'll just hold on to this control position and hope that they have a scoring card that they just have to play. And in the meantime, I think we'll try and go to space twice, but we'll hope that we fail on one of them. As weird as that sounds. Okay, well, I think we'll just overprotect our South American countries now. Or perhaps we'll Quagmire. So we could either use Quagmire we can use Quagmire to deprive them of a coup, or we can use it to... What have they used so far? Okay, so they've used a lot of blue cards. Probably indicates they've got a pretty good hand if they've evented nuclear subs. Yeah. I'm going to do this now. I know we now don't have a lot of ops to respond if they do coup and like wipe us out of one of these countries. It's kind of a bit awkward for us to play Usuri or JP, but... Okay, well, they got out of the Quagmire. But at least that's one fewer coup that they have up their sleeve. Yes, so now we do run a little bit into the aforementioned issue with ops, but let's just place influence. We could go into Poland to give us the opportunity to respond with the whole JP card. With 1 op from the JP card. Ugh, so painful. I don't think we want to play John Paul. Maybe we'll overprotect Brazil. And then if we get cooed out of Argentina, we can respond with the China card. Do we want to do that? What are our other options? I mean, we can event Lone Gunman so that we know whether they've got a scoring card. Could be somewhat useful, although it obviously gets it out of the deck. I'm kind of tempted, given how much of the game kind of rests on us being able to score this South America, I am tempted to event the Lone Gunman here. Yeah, let's do it. I think it will help us to know. Okay, so they do have a really good hand, and they've got no scoring cards. That is good to know. CMC Olympic Games. So they've basically got 3 coups up their sleeve and or puppet governments. So where can we place here? that's useful and creates problems. There's not really many opportunities for us to create problems. I think we could play into Nicaragua, for example, to dominate Central America. I think we'll do that because then it kind of forces them to, puppet governments and do something weird to respond to that, or just coup there rather than coupping one of our battlegrounds. But yeah, nuclear subs is pretty ugly for us. Okay. That's awkward. Well, let's go... I think we just got to eat whatever they manage for the rest of this turn. So let's space JP. Let's space Asuri. We're still not dominating in Europe again, are we? Anyway, we're not going to give up Poland, or even give them a sniff in Poland. So let's space Asuri. Somewhat good as a failure, because now we can space JP. So we just say, let's hope you roll poorly, is pretty much where we're at with the rest of this turn. We know they've got good cards. We know there's a chance they could make inroads. Yeah, they made some inroads in Africa. We've just got to be like, okay, we'll give ourselves the best shot to make up for that next turn. So space John Paul. Unfortunate double failure. We probably wanted one of those to succeed just for the VPs, but it is okay being held back, I think, another turn. If we can just succeed and bag those 2 VPs in space next turn, that'll be nice. Okay, so not too much damage from the nuclear subs. Not too much damage. Okay, this hand's interesting. So I think we'll just headline the Middle East scoring. Hopefully they don't... even if they headline Sadat, it wouldn't be too bad. So yeah, I think this is okay. No, it would be bad, because we would lose our domination. Yeah, hopefully they don't headline Sadat. Yep, Junta. Okay. That I can deal with. It means we miss out on a coup in Africa, but it's not the worst news. Well, that's not the best news, but... okay, well, let's just play to our strengths here. We don't have an opportunity to... So at least we know that we can 5-year plan OAS founded. We can UA intervention, shuttle diplomacy. We've got Korean War for Milops. So really we've only got U2 incident to take a country there, but then if they've got South America scoring, that feels super miserable for us. So I think let's put 2 in there and 1 here to give ourselves domination, the ability to Shay them back. Not that Shay's amazing right now, without us having moved into Cameroon, but I think we were more wanting to move into Romania than Cameroon at this point, because it's more important for us to dominate with this Europe scoring card. And we can use our UN intervention influence earlier in the turn. If we don't need to get Milops, we can use Korean War for ops as well. And I think between the shuttle diplomacy, the Korean War, we should be able to, hopefully, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, so they would need to, we'd need to take Austria after Romania. We probably could have gone into Austria there first, but yeah, it's dicey. Gosh, Europe's looking full, isn't it? So we know that Usuri, Nixon, and Cultural Revolution are all either removed or in the bin at this point. Yes, well, let's hope there are a couple more scoring cards and that both South America and Central America don't get delayed to turn 7, because that'd be pretty miserable. Oh, this is, I mean, pretty perfect for us. We can just Shay and enjoy ourselves over here. And over here. Or maybe we'll go over there instead, because we don't really want them dominating, and that Haiti is not such a problem as domination. Yeah, that seems a bit better. And it now gives us the opportunity to really threaten that realign on Zaire as well, particularly if we move into Cameroon, which we may do and we may not do. But the good thing about moving into Cameroon is that it threatens the realign on Zaire and threatens the flip on Nigeria. So it's a pretty good use of one influence, although it does obviously give them an attractive coup response when they're in a position of having no mill-ops. So, although they've already got a pretty attractive coup on Nicaragua, I have to say. But then we've got the decent counter coup option on Haiti. So, yeah. All right. Well, bye-bye shuttle diplomacy, I guess. Assault event, okay. Interesting. Right, well, let's coup. Do we want a UN intervention OAS founded is the question. We might do that later in the turn. I think we'll just Korean War and coup Angola or Zaire. Zaire's better odds, and then we've got good realigns on Angola. So let's coup Zaire. Okay. These things happen. Could have gone the realign on Brazil as well. May have been the better, more aggressive play. Yeah, it's a tough one. Let's just hope that this is another failure. Damn it, okay. Yeah, well, it's unfortunate. Not much we can do about that. I think all we can really do now is just try and utilize this to coup. So this is our 5th action round, just making sure. Yep. So we'll try and coup here again. It's pretty bad. Only 5 or 6 we succeed. That seems better. No, okay. Well, bad rolls for us this turn. South America scoring probably going to come and punch us in the face here. Which will be, yeah, that was pretty gutting, I have to say. Considering where we were at. Also, awkwardly, now left ourselves in the opportunity where we, in the situation where we have to play the China card to dominate Europe again. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Because we can't 5-year plan, and we're going to 5-year plan away this Europe scoring. So probably should have just, couped with... I mean, it was kind of an awkward situation we got ourselves into there, because if we'd not UN intervention, the OAS would have had to hold it over to next turn. But maybe OAS just matters less now anyway. So, okay, well, we can go 1, 2... 3... 4... Just to try and stop ourselves from getting blown out back in Asia. And yeah, if they realign in Central America, we get to score Europe, so it's okay. But it is only for 4 VPs. So that was a bad turn. That was a very, very bad turn for us. Our opponent had another good hand coming on the back of a good hand last turn. They've had 2 brush wars, an ABM treaty, and a junta in the last 2 turns. So we can't, you can't put enough emphasis on how important that is in the mid-war to get those 3 cards, let alone have one of them twice, although they didn't roll particularly well on the first brush war and the ABM treaty. Both the junta and the second brush war flipped, important South American countries, and we had the compounding unfortunate luck of neither of the Central or South America scoring cards coming out during the long period when we controlled or dominated them. So all in all, a bit unfortunate, but we're still in a reasonably even position here. We didn't lose Cuba, I guess. That's good. And now we get to score Europe for domination. So we're ahead on VPs. So all is not lost. Yes, Central America looks difficult, but if they realign here, we can still coup Haiti and still have an opportunity to get back into Cuba, so it's okay. But yeah, those 2 action rounds we lost coups, maybe we were better advised to, realign Brazil, solidify South America, those sorts of things. Okay. Okay, so we get to punt a scoring card. We get to headline Europe scoring. And we get to try and dominate Africa. Not a bad hand, even though we've got 4 scoring cards. So we'll probably punt Southeast Asia scoring, depending on what happens. We'll try and flip something in South America against all odds. And we'll headline Europe scoring. So they've definitely got Sadat here. But that's going to be okay because we can Muslim Revolution this turn. We're more likely to do that than we are to flower power, I think. We've also got South African unrest, which is useful because we can coup Zaire, fill up South Africa, and then try and realign Angola. So it's not too bad. That is annoying. That is very, very annoying. Well, I guess we'll give them flower power. It's unfortunate that we didn't, I don't know, draw a test ban or something like that. But yeah, annoying to have to give them another coup given the cards in our hand. And how little flexibility we have this turn in general. Well, and really how much we wanted to use our tempo to try and flip the board a little bit, not just to have to play defense to whatever they coup here. But at least we bag a couple of VPs from Europe scoring, and we'll also probably space this Camp David Accords for some VPs as well. Because Camp David Accords not occurring in the game means that we may get an AI war later on, but it also means that we deny them a VP, we deny them the opportunity to just straight up flip Egypt with their Sadat that they have in hand, and we potentially gain ourselves 2 VPs given where the space race is at. So it's not all bad. We don't have an easy opportunity to gain Milops, but we have reasonable coup targets in Haiti, so it's not too bad. All right, well, they use the ops. That's, I guess, annoying. So we get to missile envy coup somewhere. Let's make it Angola, I think. Yeah, let's make it Angola. It makes the South Africa play so much worse for them if we can succeed here. Let's go. All right. Yes, DEFCON's 3, all good. Okay. Yeah. Well, that sucks. But hopefully South African unrest will help us stabilize that. Oh dear. This is just all turning out very awkwardly in terms of when the scoring cards have arrived. We know that they've got Central America scoring this turn as well, but having so many scorings only happening on turn 7 is supremely awkward, particularly for us since we had such a good start. and we haven't had the opportunity to cash any of that into VPs at all. So slightly awkward. And what happens if we now take Angola? That's enough to defray domination. And then we get to threaten the realign on South Africa. And we can also coup Cameroon and threaten the realign on Zaire as well. They've also got Portuguese Empire crumbles, I think. Oh no, they discarded that to our Astronaut, didn't they? On turn 4. Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, what can you do? You just gotta roll with the punches. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got 2 scoring cards, 2 ARs we need to use for scoring cards. It may well be that we try the realign on South Africa as a 50-50 to discard Africa or Southeast Asia scoring, since they're like pretty much looking the same right now. Yeah, so let's... What can we do? I think we play South America scoring. Yeah, I think we'll just give up on Africa scoring now. We'll Space Camp David Accords, we'll eat the 1 VP from Southeast Asia, and we'll get rid of Africa. Okay. Well, that's unfortunate. I guess we won't be doing that. We'll space here. 3 failures in a row, that is so frustrating. I'm trying to think what we did this turn in terms of mistakes that we could have overprotected Thailand instead. I'm not sure. I guess flipping Angola probably was a little bit useless. So we know they've got Sadat, we know they've got Central America scoring as 2 of their 4 cards remaining. Let's use this to... we've got to go the 50-50 and then the realign, I think. So let's try the realign here. Well, you know. We'll go again. All right. So now if this gets rid of Southeast Asia, that'll be nice. Nope. Lose the 50-50. What can you do? I guess that's 5 VPs down the gurgler over there. So that's even. There goes those 5 VPs. Yeah. So we could have done with a few things going a little bit differently that turn. Starting with rolling better on our coup in Angola would have been nice. Them not headlining Missile Envy and being able to even out our Europe scoring. Okay. And now the Reformer is noticeably worse, unfortunately, because we've just gone behind. Okay. Portuguese Empire crumbles, not doing a lot for us. Defectors is out there. So maybe we'll headline Latin American debt crisis. We got rid of lone gunmen, so there's very little opportunity for us to kill them with DEFCON. Latin American debt crisis doesn't really do anything if they don't discard anything, so... Headlining the Reformer gives us the opportunity to... I mean, Spain's overprotected. What a weird congested board there is in Europe. I mean, we can play into Sweden and Norway. We know that they've got How I Learned as well, I think, so we need to be a little bit careful of that. Yeah, let's just go with this. And yeah, I think the best thing to do is just try and solidify these remaining two countries. Or is it better to take Austria? No, we've already got access to Austria, so... Ooh, yuck. Dear. I mean, in some ways it's okay, because it gets rid of a problematic card out of our hand, but... Boy, that's an event we didn't really want to see go off. Okay, well, they went with the coup instead. Interesting. Well, let's just re-establish ourselves in the Middle East, shall we? At least try and get some VPs happening, because things are looking pretty dire elsewhere. And then we can try and solidify things in Africa a little bit as well. South Africa is still a pretty risky place for them to play, given the realign situation, so I'm not so fussed about that. I think these two outstanding were more important, and then Cuba's pretty important as well. But we've really got to coup Haiti first before we dedicate any ops to that. So it may be coup Haiti with Latin American debt crisis, and we've also got an opportunity to space this turn profitably. We'll probably try and hold John Paul just because we don't want to hold DEFCON degraders and die. And try and hope that we can have the space to space that next turn, and we'll just space Soviets, shoot down KL007 this turn. We've only got 12 minutes, so we're going to have to hurry up a little bit as well. It'd also be nice to get 2 ops into one of those European countries this turn too. Even though Europe's already been scored, we just want to... Maybe we put 2 into Austria even, just to make it really hard for them to get us to even things up. Yeah, it's going to be pretty hard now. Like with the flip on Thailand, that was a big mistake for us not to overprotect that last turn. Although we can just flip Pakistan this turn. That's true. That is true. Maybe we'll go ahead and do that. Or we can flip Thailand, but I mean, it's kind of much of a muchness. Pakistan's probably safer from Brush War. Is Brush War back in the deck, or is that in the bin? It's back in the deck. All right. Oh, well, there we go. They saw that coming. So... yeah, things are getting a little awkward for us. Let's coup Haiti. Yep. And, I mean, it's nice to roll well on that to give ourselves a more solid position there. We can also try and, you know, guerrilla our way into Zaire by coupping Cameroon. So, yeah, depending on what their moves are here, I think we've got a few reasonably attractive options in these mid-war regions to try and sort things out a little bit. And we haven't got a great hand in terms of ops numbers, but we haven't got a terrible hand either, because most of our cards are playable. Okay. Well, let's do the Zaire play then. I think that's looking more attractive than... and we'll just try and create some problems for them. And, you know, Ortega's still out there. The other thing is we could put 2 influence into... I think we might do that. Because Ortega's out there... oh, no, it removes in Nicaragua and lets us coup Cuba. Doesn't remove in Cuba. Yeah, okay. We're not going to do that. We're going to place... we're going to coup in Cameroon. Coup Cameroon. Okay. So it kind of demands a counter coup, but it's going to be pretty easy for them since we rolled pretty badly on the coup, which is unfortunate. Yep, there it goes. And it's a success. So we'll now have the option of coupping Nigeria and then threatening to flip it, or moving into South Africa, or evening up Cuba. I think I'll even up Cuba. Because I don't like our chances on Cameroon. Like if we roll a 1 to 3, it's just catastrophic. And if we roll a 4, it's okay. It's only really 5 or 6 that are kind of decent outcomes. I'm not super keen on a 1 in 3 versus something that creates a bit of a tempo threat for our opponent there. Okay. Well, this is okay because it lets us put into Cuba and at least get ahead. Or put into Europe and get domination. I think we'll do that. No, because it's not scoring right now. That's not urgent. Yeah, let's go here. Okay. They drew it. That's annoying. So come on, space race. About time. Nope. What's that? 4 or 5 failures on that spot? That is unbelievable. Ugh. Okay. And now we've got to eat John Paul. Well, yeah, that kind of sucks. I think, you know, we were very fortunate in the first couple of turns in terms of the ops that we drew. You know, having 3 4-ops on turn 1, followed up by a Marshall Plan 4-op on turn 2. And then NATO on turn 3. So did we get all of the 4-ops in the early war? They got 1. So, like, you know, that's 5 to 1 is a decent advantage. But they've had all 3 mid-war power cards, and all of the regions that we gained advantage in the early war didn't get scored until turn 7. So, you know, there's not much you can do when you control the board for a large period of time, but the regions just simply don't get scored. It not only means that you don't have the chance to cash in your victory points, it means that your opponent's you're not able to kind of squeeze your opponent with tempo, because they don't have the scoring cards in hand. They're not desperate to, you know, rectify any particular thing at any point in time. They can just play to whatever the strengths of their hand are, and whatever your weakest point is on the board. Whereas we solidified South America really quite well. They were never obliged to fight for that until they had the exact cards to do it, or the best cards to do it. So yeah, that's pretty unfortunate. So we've got 2 Defcon degraders this turn, but we've got the China card, so all is not lost. We've got a 4+ brush war on a couple of places, and we've got ABM treaty. So this turn is really important in our chances to win the game. We're going to ABM treaty, not in the headline because Defectors is out there, and instead what I think I'm going to do in the headline is Indo-Pakistani war. And then I think we're going to regulation, because I don't think we really need to coup in Asia. I think we've got Brush War and we've got Indo-Pakistani War as opportunities to flip Asian battlegrounds. So I'm happy to use the coup to coup Libya with something. I mean, the other option is for us to use the duck and cover as but we really can't afford to give them the 3 VPs at this point, I don't think. Okay, so let's headline this. Lads, alright. And we'll go there. Alright, Well, that's a good start. Now we can use... So we have a couple of options. Do we want to just use the duck and cover to flip Libya? I mean, that's okay. And then we can space tear down this wall. I think that's probably the better way to do it, since it gives us... Like, we get somewhat the VPs back. But it also means we have a better hand going into turn 10. So let's go with that. So we've got the important things hanging at the moment are Cuba, but we've also got a couple of sort of surprise tricks up our sleeve here with the Brush War and the ABM treaty that's going to hopefully let us blast our way either into South America or Africa, but I think I'm probably more interested in Africa at this point. All right, well, we're now going to use this opportunity to just... Oh, we kind of really want the VPs from arms race, don't we? But we want to take Cuba. We're not going to give them the China card. We're not going to give up arms race. We're not going to give up either of those. Can't believe we missed out on that space race spot, but you just got to kind of take the beats sometimes. Maybe we just brush one now. 4+ in Thailand. Let's do it. Come on. Yes. All right. Whew. So comeback is on. Come on. If they take Cuba, I think we coup Zaire, really, with ABM treaty. We've also got to try and take Malaysia. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that'll put us to 7-7, and it'll be a race for Taiwan. We could have brush warred Italy, we could have brush warred Brazil, but I think depriving them of these VPs is going to give us our best chance to try and win the game. If they don't coup here, then we'll arms race because we don't want to lose those VPs. If they do coup, then that's a bit awkward. We'll probably still be ahead because they're not going to coup for 5. Okay, so they took Malaysia. Fair enough. We'll arms race. Then we'll Middle East scoring. Then we'll ABM treaty probably into Zaire. And we'll probably space, tear down this wall, carry Ussuri over, and have these ops from one small step floating for various priorities that we might have. What did end up happening to... I mean, are they trying for like a Europe control to win the game? Are they holding on to how I learned? Is that what's going on here? Bit hard to tell. All right, well, Cuban Missile Crisis flavorfully takes Cuba, but we've just got to spend our time banking VPs at this point, I think. Okay, so everything but Asia is scored. We've got the opportunity to flip Laos with a 3-up card, which will take us to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes. So that will not be enough. So we'll need to both flip Laos and take Taiwan in order to be successful. So we get to take them out of Libya, and then to influence out of Saudi Arabia. Maybe one out of Iraq was correct, and one out of Saudi Arabia, but I feel like forcing them to put those two back in there is pretty good. Okay, let's space race tear down this wall. Ah, we finally succeeded when it didn't matter. What do you know? This is going to be very, very close. Very close indeed. We may use one small step to coup Saharan states here to give ourselves the in to flip Nigeria. But we'll see how we go with this Zaire coup. The other opportunity is to use ABM treaty to coup Mexico. But I think if we can finish the game dominating in Africa, we should win. Or we should come very close. Okay, well that VP is not irrelevant. Let us play this event and coup Zaire. Being able to carry the China card over into turn 10 is going to be handy. And if we do manage to draw terrorism, that will be nice. Okay, well, we've got two opportunities to realign here. Let's hope that we can succeed. Come on. Nice. All right. Well, I'm pretty happy with that. Countering, you know, a 3-up play where they have to play one of our cards in Iranian hostage crisis is not too bad. Obviously, we're going to struggle a little bit for the fact that we are, you know, they're the US, so they get to play last and potentially negate a couple of our advantages, but we just got to do what we can do. Wow, okay. Well, I think we must have been very close to not dodging war games there. Yeah, wow. That must have been very, very close. Okay, well, this I like. This looks like a successful hand. So I think we'll headline Red Scare and then we'll terrorism them. We've got Pershing, got OPEC. This is a really nice hand. All right. Cool. We could have also headlined Junta to degrade DEFCON so that we can protect North Korea, but yeah, I think it's okay. They're gonna need to play the China card to take North Korea. And if they do, then they end up just even there. So that's not too bad. All right. So we want to coup in Mexico, I think. So let's play event. 2 influence in Venezuela. And maybe we'll just coup Venezuela, actually. Yeah. Cool. That worked out all right. We've got 3.5 minutes, so we've got to be reasonably snappy here. But we'll get to terrorism them for 2 cards late in the turn, which might deprive them of an action round. How do we calculate this? They've got 7 action rounds remaining and 8 cards. So yeah, it should deprive them of their last action round. And what will Pershing do if we do that second last? That'll not do a heap, I don't think, will it? No. All right, well, 1 VP, so that means that we can take North Korea back with the Iron Lady. Which I'm fine with. We can get our VPs from, our MILOPs from Iran-Iraq War. Just got to dodge that. We may not event pushing, depends how much the VP matters, but I mean, I guess taking 3, like taking 1 out of Canada, Benelux and Denmark might actually be handy here. Okay, well, we'll just do that now. So we'll take 1, 2, 3. which actually sets us up for possible Europe domination. We get to OPEC. So how many? We've got 4 action rounds left, right? Yep. So we can play these 4 cards. One of them's going to have to go to space, Solidarity or Asuri. That's okay. Europe being even is totally fine with us. We'll realign Brazil, I think, here. We'll just play OPEC first. Yeah, I think we'll... It's kind of... Do we need to realign Brazil? Not sure that we do. Okay. Maybe we do. Or do we? So we kind of want Iran-Iraq war for the Milops, but... no, I think if we can successfully realign here, it's a huge blowout for them. Come on. No. Okay. So the Milops would have been good. The Milops would have been good. But I think depriving them of their last AR is going to hopefully be enough. Whoa, okay. Huge. Huge that we get Shay here, I mean. Attempt coup in. So we've at least got the opportunity to play in if we want. And then here. No, we might as well go here. Okay. I think we'll terrorism them because we may actually be willing to give up on Poland if we get to play last. Yeah, so let's do that. Okay, interesting. Are we willing to give them 3 in Poland here in exchange for Venezuela? Probably not. Let's just space race this. All right. So that's it. GG. Thanks to our opponent. Hope you enjoyed watching. I'll chat more to Adam after. It's a bit hard to commentate and type at the same time, but hope you enjoyed our coverage of the playoff season of the International Twilight Struggle League. I've been Jesse Marshall for the Winning Agenda. Hope you'll tune in for the next game of the playoffs, which we now advance to very excitingly. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.